football. For Cowboys Texans, the spread is 7. The over-under is 41.5.
So I know what's wrong with the Texans offense, and it's bad news for the Cowboys. So we were talking last week about the fact that the Texans haven't scored a second-half touchdown in like a month. It was week 6 against the Patriots, and we were wondering. We asked John McClain about it. We're saying, hey, what's the deal with Houston's offense? What's happening in the second half of these games? The answer isn't all that remarkable, and it actually makes a lot of sense when you think about what their problem is. It's the fact that Nico Collins has been out. So Nico Collins...
Because they're blaming everything on the offensive line.
The offensive line is a big part of it, too. But the offensive line's kind of been bad all year. The thing that changed and really morphed their offense was when Nico Collins went down. So if you look at the fact that there's a couple different ways that him leaving has really sort of shape-shifted their offense and changed things.
And he's back tonight?
He is back tonight. He has finally been cleared, and there's no injury designation, nothing. He's good to go. He is in this game. And play-action passing and the middle of the field are both things that'll be back in play for the Texans tonight that they haven't had for about a month. So if you haven't seen or if the Cowboys are watching a bunch of recent games of the Texans and try to figure out how they're going to attack, they probably need to put that out of their head, because that's what they lean on Nico Collins for. Those things being absent are the big reasons why they've had a lot of their struggles. Bobby Sloak went and basically changed the entire design of their route combinations when Collins went out. They just felt like they couldn't do things. So we talk about Stephon Diggs being a big loss for them, and he's a really good player. They have other guys on their team that do things stylistically the same way Stephon Diggs does. So when Diggs goes down, it's, okay, you step in, you start taking this route concept, you do this over here. When Collins went down, they have nobody who runs the routes and does the things that Collins does. So if you look at the fact, and it was, at first I was just watching the recent games. I had to go back and look at stuff with Collins to get an idea of, okay, how different does this look? And it looks incredibly different. So typically the way that CJ Stroud has been really comfortable the first year and a half of his career, what Stroud does is he likes to pepper the middle of the field. He likes to play things in between the numbers, posts, slants, and Collins is a big part of what he leans on there. It's on average over the course of the first year and a half of his career, it's 65% of his pass attempts are between the numbers. With Collins down in these 5 weeks since, his numbers his throws between the numbers have been below 50%. Everything is outside. It's completely, if you look at his spray chart of his attempts,
cowardly.
It's completely changed. Well, I mean, it's also just those throws outside the numbers, they're difficult. Yeah. And it's lowered his percentages. They've had issues with that. The play-action passing game was something that's been way different without Nico Collins in it. Nico Collins is 5th in the NFL right now, having missed half the season. He's 5th in the NFL in play-action receiving yards. That's the guy that they lean on completely to do those things. CJ Stroud's yards per attempt on play action the first 5 weeks of the season was 10.5. Collins goes down. Since then, CJ Stroud's yards per attempt on play action passes are 4.7. It's less than half.
Nico leads the league in yards per game at 113.4. Has not played since week 6. In the 5 games he's played this year, he has 3 100-yard performances. So it'll be the first time playing since Diggs was lost for the year for Nico.
Yeah, so this is it, and that's something that's been problematic for Stroud this year. Is he keeps having guys get hurt, and he doesn't have anybody that he's consistently been able to lean on. Collins has been the biggest part of it, but
if you are the receiver that's benefiting the most from play action, I mean, that's telling me in my mind you're running down the field. Longer routes,
it's play
longer
action
developing.
Posts. Yeah, it's stuff. It's the play action passes and him hitting the posts. He's a big guy for slants for them. Collins has been Stroud's, not his preferred hot read. His hot read typically is Tank Dell. So when he sees the blitz is coming or he has an anticipation that they're going to have a free rusher, his hot read is typically Tank Dell. So
he recovered from his injury?
He looks fine so far. He hasn't had as much of an issue. He hasn't been as prolific as he was, but he looks fine to me. He doesn't look like he's lagging. And that's the guy Dell's the guy that Stroud will lean on to. I got to get the ball out quickly, and I need somebody to make a play because of a blitz or whatever else, and that's his hot read. But Collins has been a big part of that too. The other issue is Nico Collins is their red zone guy. That's who Stroud likes to throw the ball to when they get in the red zone. So they start getting in these red zone situations. It has completely changed the way they design their red zone offense and the way that Stroud delivers the ball, and it's caused them to have these issues offensively that they've run into. The bigger or a big part of this, the part that everybody keeps talking about, is the offensive line. they've had a really down year with their tackles, Titus Howard and Laramie Tunsil. Those are two pretty good tackles that they've had for years who just are not playing as well as they typically have. But the interior is what's a total mess. Shaq Mason, the right guard, is not very good. They actually had to take their center, the guy who played center for them all this year, Juice Scruggs. Their left guard went down, Kenyon Green, for the year, and they had to take Juice Scruggs and move him after a couple weeks because it was so bad against Green Bay and all the interior pressure they were giving up. Left guard is where Scruggs had played last year, so they made that switch. So they've got a new center in there now who's just started for a week, and they've already shifted their guard around, and they're trying to mix and match some different things. So it looks like a team in flux, but this is a team that they had a lot of success doing things offensively in the passing game with the offensive line struggles just when they had Collins in there.
CJ has been sacked 34 times, second most in the NFL, 269 lost yards on those sacks, the most by any player in the league.
Yeah, he is. Houston is 30th in pressure rate. So they give up pressure at the third highest percentage in the NFL this season. And so they've tried to lean on the running game at times with Mixon. It's not an incredibly efficient running game. Like, they'll use it and they'll lean on it at times, especially if they feel like they can't pass protect. But Mixon hasn't been really efficient. He's kind of just been a grinded out guy, and their blocking is just as bad a lot of times in the run game as it is in pass protection. So they've had their struggles offensively, but them getting Collins back tonight it's probably not even going to look like the same offense Dallas has studied from the last few weeks.
Inside the film room with Bobby Bell previewing this evening right here on The Fan.
Houston, on the defensive side of the ball, they're going to be missing Will Anderson in this game.
And he's been
huge. He's really good, the edge rusher for
worth
them.
it is the pick.
Yes, yeah, he's awesome. Now, if you start saying you've already got Danielle Hunter and you've got some other guys who are good contributors, do you say it was worth it to trade the capital they did to try and have two of them?
It was crazy. I mean, you don't usually see that. You pick somebody second, then all of a sudden you trade up, use next year's pick.
But he is really, really good. And so him being lost for this game, that's a big deal for Dallas because, again, you're talking about pressure rate. While they give up the third most, they generate the most pressure in the NFL. 42% of dropbacks, they're pressuring the quarterback. And so Danielle Hunter has been fantastic for them, who they essentially traded in Minnesota. Jonathan Greenard went to Minnesota. Danielle Hunter came to Houston as free agents. They kind of swapped spots, but they get a ton of pressure, and they play really comfortably in coverage. Their corners, their safeties, their entire secondary just looks unflappable. You know, at times we see with Carson or some of the guys here in Dallas, it feels like they look a little skittish out there. It's completely cool and calm and collected, and that's a young secondary, too.
What is up with Lamb? Is this something to really worry about? Jordan Lewis and Deron Bland officially out for tonight. CD questionable with a back.
He had back spasms crop up, so we'll know a little bit more as we get going this afternoon and we start hearing a little bit more details about it, but it does sound like it's a legitimate question for them. I think he's going to play. That's what it sounded like, but it's at least a question because back spasms flared up, I think, on Saturday with him.
Can you imagine if he's not out there? Can you imagine if he's not out there with this offense? What it would be.
Would you think they would score points tonight?
They'll find a way. They'll find a way to get themselves into.
Yeah, we named Rico the official starter.
Yes, that's true.
Right.
Yeah. We didn't mock that enough on Friday as the Cowboys are now like, we're going to go ahead and state the obvious just 5 weeks too late.
Now, we did talk about how Babe had mentioned it on Thursday. You hear a lot about this with D'Amico Ryans that it looks really similar to what he was running in San Francisco for 2 years, where Dallas had a lot of issues with that. And it does.
And what does that mean?
So what
do they do?
It's 4 down linemen. They're going to just kind of show you those 4. They're not going to blitz a ton. They're going to play a lot of zone. They're going to play, just neutral boxes in a lot of instances. Occasionally they'll stack the box, but it's neutral boxes a lot. It's a lot of zone coverage. It's a lot of off coverage and kind of keeping things in front of you. The difference here is that the blitz rate, if you take D'Amico Ryans' last 2 years in San Francisco and his first year in Houston, it's super consistent. It's 21%. That's how often he's going to blitz. This year, it's up to 31%, and that's almost all on third down. So when they get into third and long situations, Houston's bringing a bunch of blitzers, but they don't disguise anything. We talked about how Dan Quinn got to a point where he wasn't disguising much. He just kind of said, static look. I don't want a bunch of confusion. I want my guys to execute, and I trust the players that I have out here. That's DeMeco Ryans. He says, I've got really good players across the board. I don't feel I need to disguise anything. I'll show you my blitzers who I'm bringing up. I'll show you exactly what we're going to do in coverage, and we're just going to execute it really well. If they want any chance to win this game, they are going to have to run the ball because Houston has shown some susceptibility there. Houston has allowed more 10-yard rushes with a stacked box than any team in the NFL. But at the same rate, they're like second in stuff rate. So it's a Joey Gallo run defense. They're striking out or they're getting home runs every single time.